What started as a small party with friends and family ended in tragedy for a young Indiana couple. 25-year-old Noele Renee Trice and her partner, 29-year-old Bryan Keith Lash, hosted a barbecue with friends and family the night of June 9, 2017. After watching an NBA game between the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, everyone left to go home. Noele and Bryan retired for the night, but their friends and loved ones would never again see them alive. Fort Wayne in Indiana is the second most populous city in the state. It experiences hot summers and freezing winters. It's noted as a center for higher learning and is home to Purdue University, Fort Wayne. It was also home to Noele Trice and Bryan Lash. Noele was born on June 28, 1991, to Kimberly Gomez and Norman Trice III. She, along with her 5 siblings, were raised in Fort Wayne. It was in this city she met and began a relationship with fellow Fort Wayne native Bryan Lash. Bryan was born on July 7, 1987, to April and Bryan Lash Sr. He, along with his sister Amber, were also raised in the city by both parents until his father's passing. Prior to meeting Noele, he'd been in a relationship and had 2 daughters, Olivia and Alexis. After meeting Noele, the pair began a serious relationship and moved in together. They would go on to have 1 child together, a son named King Richard. Family and friends described them as a couple who enjoyed having fun with friends and family. Their home was always open to those closest to them, who frequently passed by to enjoy an evening with food and laughter. So it was unusual for the couple to go silent on their loved ones. When Noele and Bryan failed to answer any calls, people grew concerned. At around 9:51 a.m. on June 10, 2017, a friend decided to do a welfare check on the friendly duo. Little did he know the horror that awaited him. Both Noele and Bryan were found stabbed to death inside their Fort Wayne home on Weiser Park Avenue. Traces of their blood had been found throughout the residence. Fortunately, their son had been away from home with family that night. Noele and Bryan were both pronounced dead at the scene. Coroner's reports later revealed that both had suffered sharp force injuries and were stabbed multiple times. Bryan, it seemed, had ultimately died of blood loss caused by his injuries. Noele had been killed instantly. Both Noele and Bryan were laid to rest on June 16, 2017, in private services held by their families. Investigations began immediately, with robbery suspected as being the possible motive for the crime. They began by questioning the family, who said they all had been together the night before. Police soon learned that many of the people who had been at the party were actually there to buy marijuana. Court documents revealed that Noele allegedly sold high-grade marijuana. Upon further questioning, one name kept coming up: Dustin Neal. Neal was brought in for questioning and explained to investigators that he was, in fact, at the party. He stated that he and Noele had known each other for over 20 years. Neal also told police that he knew Noele was selling high-grade marijuana for thousands of dollars per pound. However, he claimed he left around midnight and did not return to the couple's home. With nothing other than speculation, police were unable to detain Neal. He was released and allowed to go home. Working on the information about Noele allegedly selling marijuana, investigators began looking at other angles. Despite thorough investigations into the crime, no new leads came up and the case went cold. In July 2018, though, new leads slowly trickled in. A witness came forward with information regarding Neal. The witness alleged that Neal called them around 8 a.m. and was trying to make a quick sale of about 1 to 2 pounds of marijuana. The witness told police that they'd found it strange because Neal sounded frantic. They also stated that Neal was a cocaine user and often short on cash. Although it painted a new picture of who Neal really was, police could do nothing without physical evidence. Another 4 years passed before a second witness came forward with much more compelling information. The witness claimed that Neal's half-brother confessed to him that Neal was in fact responsible for the murders of Noele and Bryan. In October 2022, police tracked down Neal's half-brother and questioned him about the claims he'd made. The half-brother, who has not been named, told police that Neil's cousin made allegations that Neil had been bragging about the murders. According to the cousin, Neil explained that he'd broken into the couple's home but did not expect them to be there at the time. While Neil was looking for the marijuana, he heard someone moving about and saw Bryan coming at him. He reacted by stabbing Bryan multiple times and continued searching for the drugs. He then encountered Noele, who'd woken up after hearing the commotion, and stabbed her to death as well. He bragged that he'd stabbed her in the face so hard the knife got stuck. Police now had the circumstantial evidence, but needed to find something that could physically prove Neil was at the Trice Lash residence at the time of the murders. During another look through the evidence collected at the scene, another witness came forward with more damning information. According to the witness, when they were speaking about the murders, Neil stated, "We are not going to talk about that." Allegedly, Neil followed that remark with, "I have 5 bodies under me." The witness went on to allege that he'd been with Neil at another friend's trailer when both Neil and that friend said they'd burned some clothes after the couple's murder. Armed with this information, the Fort Wayne Police Department, together with a special agent from the FBI, began working on tracing Neil's cellular records on the night of the murder. After much investigation, they were able to narrow down the records to the day of the murder. On the morning of June 10, 2017, Neil's phone pinged off a tower close to a friend's house at around 3 a.m. that morning. Another ping was picked up close to towers near Noele and Bryan's residence that placed Neil at the crime scene somewhere between 6:20 a.m. and 7:04 a.m. Police knew Neil was hiding something. Throughout all his interviews with police, Neil vehemently claimed his innocence and said he never returned to Noele and Bryan's residence after leaving the party that night. His phone records, though, showed a different story altogether. Further evidence from the scene included a partial fingerprint that was found on Noele's cell phone. The fingerprint matched that of Neil. Neil, now aged 35, was arrested in January 2023 in Wells County by the FWPD and Allen County Sheriff's Department in connection to the murders of Noele Trice and Bryan Lash. He was charged with 2 counts each of murder, felony murder, and robbery resulting in serious bodily harm. He's been detained pending extradition to Allen County. FWPD Detective Brian Martin said that Neil had always been on their radar and was very familiar to them. "We're obviously very pleased with the fact that we were able to bring a conclusion to this case with the arrest of Dustin Neil," he said. Martin said the witness statements were key to putting together the evidence and making an arrest. "If it was your family, your loved one who was taken away from you in a violent way, you would want someone with that information to come forward," he said. He also said that they were very happy to be able to talk to the family prior to the news of Neil's arrest. He said he believed that being able to answer the why or the who question for the grieving family somehow helped in the healing process, but there never really is closure. "I'm not a fan of the word closure because I'm not sure that you can ever have closure when a loved one is taken from you in such a violent way," said Martin. Neil's case remains ongoing.